Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to Living Environment. I'm Miss Parsons, and we're about to get started with part 2 of Unit 2, Biomolecules, Day 1. What is a biomolecule? Let's find out. All right, so we're looking at Biomolecules, Part 2, Day 1. How do cells use chemical compounds to maintain homeostasis? Let's begin. So, first of all, homeostasis. This is a word that I hope we do recognize. Homeostasis. And homeostasis means stability, means a balanced and stable internal environment. Right, so as I'm sitting right now in the classroom, I am not sweating, I am comfortable, I'm hydrated, I have some water, I already ate my lunch, my body is able to maintain a stable internal environment. I am at homeostasis. So, how do cells use chemical compounds to maintain homeostasis? And I already gave you somewhat of a clue, right? So in order for my cells to maintain this stable, balanced internal environment, I need some chemical compounds, including H2O, that's in my water, and also some organic compounds called biomolecules. But let's first go back to something that we might remember from part 1 of Unit 2. Name 3 organelles that a plant cell has that an animal cell does not. So because we're talking about plant cells now, I'm going to go with the color green because green signifies plants, as we all learned in kindergarten. So a plant cell has a cell wall, which we may recall makes a plant cell have this sort of rectangular shape. And animal cells and plant cells have the cell membrane, but it's only plant cells that have this cell wall. And the cell wall gives plant cells a more rigid, square structure, and it provides support for the plant. Plant cells also have the chloroplast, C-H-L-R-L-O-R-O, chloroplast. You guys might remember from the cell wrap. The chloroplast is pretty important, and inside of the chloroplast, which is usually depicted as somewhat of a cylindrical shaped organ with what looks like a little stack of green pancakes on the inside, like this. And the chloroplast is the site of the very important process, photosynthesis, which makes glucose from sunlight, CO2, and good old H2O. And the plant cell also has a central vacuole, which stores food for the plant and waste, but the primary purpose of the central vacuole is that it stores water. So when you see an image of a plant cell, right, it has this rectangular shape due to the cell wall. You might notice a little chloroplast in there, and then you're also going to notice sort of like a large empty space that you wouldn't see in an animal cell. And that empty space is usually left white to signify that it's empty. And that in that space, there's usually water, and that space is called the central vacuole. The reason that that space is important and exists in plant cells and not in animal cells is because a plant does not have bones. So what helps it maintain its structure, in addition to that rigid external cell wall, the central vacuole being filled with water, helps keep the plant straight up in what's called a turgid state. So turgid means that all the cells are nice and plump and filled with water, and you'll observe turgid plant cells underneath a microscope when we look at onion cells under a microscope. So stay tuned for that. So now we're done with our cell review. Let's go ahead and continue by talking about the chemistry of cells. So you're going to read the passage below, notice that the sentences are numbered, and then answer the questions that follow. So as I read, I'm going to annotate. Let's begin. Carbohydrates are organic compounds made out of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So carbohydrates are organic compounds, and we know that organic compounds are made up of carbon, baby. All organic compounds have carbon and hydrogen. Organic means natural, but it's specifically in the case of especially biochemistry, refers to compounds that contain carbon and hydrogen. So carbohydrates contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in the proportion of 1:1, meaning 1 carbon, 2 hydrogen, and 1 oxygen. And that's the ratio in carbohydrate molecules. Carbohydrates are a key source of energy as they are found in most foods, especially fruits, vegetables, and grains. So fruits, vegetables, and grains are good sources of carbohydrates. The building blocks of carbohydrates are simple sugars called monosaccharides, such as glucose, which is very important. And this is the formula for glucose, C6H12O6. I highlighted that a little dark, but you want to commit this formula to memory. Glucose is a simple word for simple sugar. And that's C6H12O6. Glucose, baby. Okay. Glucose is a major source of energy in cells. It is very important. Disaccharides. So now mono means 1. Di means 2. So disaccharides are double sugars, whereas monosaccharides are single sugars. Disaccharides are double sugars formed when 2 monosaccharides are joined together. For example, sucrose, or common table sugar, which consists of glucose and fructose. Poly, meaning many, polysaccharides are chains of 3 or more monosaccharides. A polysaccharide is an example of a macromolecule, or a large molecule made up of many smaller molecules. So we've got some important new vocabulary words here. I encourage you to annotate this passage on your own. So if you're working on your Google Doc, you can bold the text, enter, add additional notes, insert photos, whatever would be helpful to you to understand that text. But I have written on it with my Apple Pencil. You can also do that on your own if you want to edit the PDF with your finger. But this is a dense paragraph, right? And the idea behind this, we want you to practice your skill of reading effectively. So this is an example of a passage that you might get on the Regents, right? And so you want to be able to identify and understand complex scientific language, even when you might not be familiar with all of the words that are being used based on context. So let's go ahead and take a look at the questions and see if we can answer them based on this text. What elements form an organic compound classified as a carbohydrate? So if we go back to sentence 1, we can see that an organic compound, the organic compound carbohydrates are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So the elements are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Number 2 asks, what does the 2 represent in the proportion given in sentence 1? And so we can see carbohydrates are organic compounds made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms in the proportion of 1 to 1. So we said that means there are twice as many hydrogen atoms as carbon and oxygen. And if we look at that formula, C6H12O6, we can see that that's true. In the formula for glucose, there are twice as many hydrogen as there are carbon and oxygen. Question number 3 asks, what 3 food groups are good sources of carbohydrates? So we can look back up at the text and see that carbohydrates are a key source of energy and they are found in most foods, especially fruits, vegetables, and grains. So fruits, veggies, and grains. So you may hear in a discourse about dieting, that carbohydrates aren't healthy for you, right? And usually when you hear that carbohydrates aren't healthy for you, they're talking about simple carbs or simple sugars, monosaccharides, which are found in things like candy, sweets, sugary sodas and sugary juices, right, that have added sugar, that have added simple sugars. Also, grains, which are in bread, can be whole grain or they can be refined grains. And refined grains, which are found in like white bread, a lot of cereal, like sugary breakfast cereal, or even baked goods, those are carbohydrates that are less healthy for your body. And the reason that they're less healthy for your body is because a simple sugar or monosaccharide only has 1 bond. And we're going to talk more about this later, but the energy that is in our food is stored in the chemical bonds. So the way that we get the energy is by breaking those chemical bonds. And when you're eating something like a monosaccharide that is just a simple sugar, there's only 1 chemical bond to break. So we break that 1 bond and we get all the energy stored in 1 bond, and that 1 bond in a quick burst. So it could be like something really calorically dense, like let's say you're going to have a sugary soda. That might have a lot of calories. That might have 200 or 300 calories in it, and you can drink it really quickly. But every single little carbohydrate and sugar molecule in that beverage is going to be broken boom, 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 right away by your body. And in fact, glucose can be digested in your saliva, right in your mouth. So that's why you may experience the feeling known as a sugar high right after you eat something sweet. You get a quick burst of energy, but that energy isn't sustainable. It doesn't last for a long time. And that's because you're able to break all those chemical bonds right away, and the energy comes out in one quick burst. That can also cause you to gain weight or store that excess energy as fat, and that's because once we break all those chemical bonds, that energy is all coursing through your body at once. So those calories, if they can't be used by your body in that moment, and our body can only process so much at any one time, then the excess will be stored as fat for later use. Compared to something that's like a whole grain, like a 12-grain bread, that is a more sustainable source of carbohydrates. If you eat something that is a whole grain, that is a polysaccharide, that has more complex carbohydrate chains, there's going to be more chemical bonds, and it takes your body a longer time to break those several chemical bonds, to break up that larger macromolecule, and as a result, that energy takes longer for your body to use up and provides you with longer, more sustainable energy. So, long explanation for number 3, but again, fruits and vegetables are great sources of those more complex carbohydrates that are better for your body and better for you. So, and we're going to talk a lot more about nutrition as we discuss biomolecules and in Unit 3, which is called nutrition. So, number 4, the prefix mono means one. What word in sentence 3 contains a prefix? What is the meaning of this word? So in sentence 3, we have the building blocks of carbohydrates are simple sugars called monosaccharides, such as glucose and fructose. So we have monosaccharides. Mono means one, and saccharide means sugar. So the meaning of this word is simple sugar or one sugar. And again, an example of a monosaccharide is glucose or any small one molecule sugar. Monosaccharides, which are contrasted from disaccharides, which are double bonded sugars, or polysaccharides, which are many bonded sugars. Number 5, what chemical formula is given in sentence 3? How many atoms are in a molecule of this compound? So looking at sentence 3, we get the chemical formula for glucose. O6, 6 oxygen. So if we add that up, what chemical formula is given to us, and you can see why I wrote it so large, it's because we're going to be referencing it a lot. We've got the chemical formula for glucose, which is C6H12O6, and we can add that up. That is 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, that's 18, plus 6 more oxygen, that's 24 atoms to make up one glucose molecule, which is a molecular compound. Number 6, the prefix di means 2. What term in sentence 5 contains this prefix? What is the meaning of this term? So we've got disaccharide, which means double bonded sugar. And if you guys haven't already noticed, or I haven't already said it enough times, saccharide means sugar. All right, we're almost done. In sentence 6, which two monosaccharides join to form table sugar? So in sentence 6, it says sucrose, or common table sugar, consists of glucose, monosaccharide, and fructose, monosaccharide. Oops. Glucose and fructose form together to make table sugar. And number 8 asks, the prefix poly means more than one. Which term in question 7 contains this prefix? Why, that would be polysaccharide, which means many sugar. And you always want the polysaccharides, which have many bonds. And as we discussed, the energy is stored. Ooh, I'll write this here below. The energy is stored in the bonds. Energy is in the bonds. So the more bonds, the more usable energy for your body. And I hope that this brief text review helped you understand a lot of these new vocabulary words that you're going to become more comfortable with as we continue to discuss biomolecules, macromolecules, organic compounds. All of these words are synonyms for each other. And tomorrow in our Zoom class, we're going to be reading quite a bit more about biomolecules. So if that wasn't enough for you, stay tuned for more. All right. I hope you guys have a super fantastic day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Hit that little bell for notifications. Complete your exit ticket and join us tomorrow on Zoom. Bye, guys.